Hey, fire starters, welcome back to another episode. I have a new friend here, Jori O'Neale. She's going to share a little bit about her story, and I cannot wait to introduce you to her. She is an author whose life story is a testament to resilience and hope. Growing up in Chicago, she's witnessed drug abuse, gang violence, and was a victim of molestation. Despite enduring near-death experiences, including a car crash, a jungle gym collapse, and multiple shootings, get this, between the ages of 8 and 12, goodness, she has definitely emerged stronger. Her journey through the pain of 3 miscarriages and the joy of carrying 4 children to full term has shaped her profound understanding of struggle and triumph. She is currently a dedicated New York City public school teacher who leads with the motto firm but fair, which I absolutely love. She strives to bring hope and joy into the lives of every student she encounters. Her latest book, More Than Enough, The Silent Struggle of a Woman's Identity, is a powerful exploration of the challenges women face in their journey towards self-discovery and empowerment. Through her writing, she aims to inspire and connect with readers, giving a voice to the silent struggles many women endure. Jori, welcome to the Firestarters podcast.
Thank
I'm
you
so
so
glad
much
you're
for
here.
having me, Hillary. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we're gonna dive into it with my favorite question that I always start with, and that is, I want you to think back. I can only imagine the Lord has called you to step out of the boat multiple times in your life, but I would love for you to share a time that resonates with you the most or that you feel has created the most transformation in your life personally.
Uh, so I came to faith at the tender age of 18. Um, and it's been about 22 years of ups and downs and getting out the boat and walking on the water and sinking and falling and getting back in. And so I think one of the most pivotal times that I believe God called me to walk out on faith with Him is probably about a couple years ago, right before I wrote my first book, right before a lot of firsts. I had tore my ACL. I'm a phys ed teacher. That is what I do. I teach phys ed in high school in Queens, New York. And I was at a volleyball practice and I went up to demonstrate a spike and came down and bad things happened to my leg. And I've knocked my knee out of place a couple times in my life. But I would say this is different. this is no way. This is different. And initially I said, okay, well, I don't know what happens when you tear your ACL, but I see, on TV when the NBA players do it, they go to rehab and then, a couple weeks later, they sitting on the sidelines and walking around. So this is what I'm assuming is happening with my insides. And so I had a student carry me to my car because there was no weight that I could put on my leg. So be good to your students because you never know when they're gonna need to carry you to your car.
That's a good one.
Yeah, so he carried me to my car. My coworker followed me to emergency care, and they said, "Okay, well, you didn't break any bones." I said, "Well, that's good." They said, "But we don't think you have an ACL anymore, and you have no more meniscus." I say, "Well, that's not good. That's okay." So they said, "Do you want to opt for surgery?" And I had gone back and forth. I said, "Let's just try rehab and see what we can do." And so went to rehab, and after about 3 months, I said, I have to have surgery because even after the rehab and strengthening my legs and losing weight, every time I stopped abruptly, every time I went, and I could feel my knee shift. I could feel the instability. And I have 4 small children, 10, 8, 6, and 5.
Yeah.
At the time, they were 7, 5, 3, and like 18 months. I say, I think I should want to walk and run
It's gonna,
and stuff.
gonna be needed.
But the thing that after the surgery, I was told that even after the surgery, I might not ever get to 100%. And the thought that I was just like, God, like I didn't even want to be an educator. You called me to this, and now here you are breaking my legs, and like I'm in the bed laid up. I had a hip brace on. So it went from my hip all the way down to my ankle. And my husband went back to work because he had taken off some time, and the kids are at school, and I'm laying in the bed in the dark, and I just started bawling because I'm like, I felt so helpless. I felt so powerless. And I felt this before in my life, but I was like, now you're playing with my money. Like, like this is different. I can't work. I went to school. I took out a second loan to pay to be a phys ed teacher. Now I can't even do that. And I guess that identity shift where God was calling me from being just a teacher into being whatever. And I had to be open to what that whatever was. And I remember feeling sorry for myself. And I heard this, it felt so real and present, this voice that said, I need you to get up. And I was like, but I can't because of the leg and the hip brace. And he said, no, I need you to get up. I need you to get up and I need you to go in the next room and I need you to clear it out. And I was just like, where is this voice coming from? I'm by myself. Okay, I know in the Bible when you hear the Lord's voice, you're supposed to say, here am I. Your servant is listening. But this is not, I don't feel like it. Like, I don't like how is this happening? And I was like, all right, God, you tell me to go. I'm gonna go. What we doing? He said, I just need you to get up and go to the next room and clear it out. And so I got up, which I couldn't do before. Literally, I couldn't do before, and walked in the next room and cleared it out. Like all the toys, all the clothes, all cleared it out. So there was a desk and a bed and a chair, and that was it. And I created basically my sanctuary. And that's where I met with the Lord every morning, 3, 4 in the morning. And all the downloads, all the crying and the praying and the leg strengthening. I was getting strengthened both internally in terms of my knee, but more so in my heart and my spirit. And this was December 2021. And the following year, I started doing a Bible study with women online that turned into a podcast that I've had now for 2 years. That following year was the first book that I had written. That following year was the first time I did an in-person comedy show, specifically to like an outreach for people to come to church to hear comedy. It was on a Friday night, and we're still doing it, Fun Friday Live. And it, like I said, it was the first of so many things, but it started with a yes, right? And so we're still walking on water right now. And the winds and the waves, they coming. They come, and I'm like, all right, God, I remember when I couldn't walk, and you let me walk. So keep helping me walk. I just need to keep walking, and as long as I'm walking with you, we are right. And so when I feel myself sinking or getting off focus, that's when the drowning starts happening, and I have to reshift. But that, I want to say, probably was the most life altering calls that I've received from God to get out the boat. Like, that changed everything.
There's so much that I want to pull through from that you shared. So much. Your story just resonates with me as an educator myself. And you said it, you're messing with my money. Like, as educators, in Texas anyway, I know you're in New York, we're not rolling in money. We are not rolling in money. And both my husband and I were educators, and we had a surprise baby at 40, which you have to be so, I know, if you're not watching us right now, Jori just like lifted her eyebrow. Like, say what? Yeah, that was the Lord's doing. And I know you're like, you know how that happens. I do, but it was standardized testing month, and I got a little confused on timing, and next thing you know, I'm pregnant. So, but and you have to be so grateful for that, because children are a gift. I mean, they're
Amen.
such a gift. And they're the Lord's work, not ours. He chose to do that. So I'm like, all right, Lord, but we had no money. I'm like, we can't afford the 3 that we have. We can't afford braces. We're in debt from getting foundation repairs on our house, having the babies. That cost us money we're still paying off. Not irresponsible money. 12 years of marriage, never took a family vacation, not once,
Mm.
because it would be irresponsible. We'd have to charge it. We didn't have the cash. So here we are with this fourth baby. And similar to you, I was at home, C-section, on maternity leave, and just the lowest of the lowest of the lowest, and found myself on my knees just crying out to God, like, why have you done this? We're sinking. We can barely keep our head above water. How am I going to provide for all four of them?
Mm.
And now, and I'm in Texas where I was, they prorated my maternity leave. So I was earning $700 a month since that November before, and this was February. $700 a month is what I was living off of.
No, ma'am.
We may have been bringing in like $2,100 a month, maybe. And I have a master's in education, right? So it is one of those moments where you're like, all right, my money has been messed with. I'm overwhelmed, but just so similar to your story, Jori, that's when the Lord called me out.
Mm.
That's when he said, I need you to get up. And he ordered my next steps. And it was a prolific season of firsts, very similar. And I'm just curious, I'm thinking there are women listening to this right now, most likely educators, who have gone through the same experience and who feel called out, and they're in it right now and they're scared. So I'm curious, in that year where you said yes to all of that, what were the biggest challenges? I mean, did fear stop you? Doubt? Were you just overwhelmed by how much he was calling you to? What was challenging?
I think shifting identities from being as an educator, I think like, even though you've gone to tons of schooling, it's not a prestigious position. Like in other
Right.
countries, it is looked on with such grandeur and such, like, amazing. Like, wow, you educate our youth. Like, thank you. Right. And so here in America, not so much. It's like,
No.
oh, you're just a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't sit well with me. And I said, okay, well, I'll be a teacher for this amount of time, God. And then when I'm ready to not be a teacher, then I'll do something different, because I was not a teacher before, right? So I can not be a teacher again. Like, I chose this. And, arrogance starts, pride puffs up. And I said, okay, if you are calling me to do more than teach, what does that make me? Right? Because I needed to qualify it or quantify it or label it or put it in a box or categorize it or something. And it was not categorizable. Like, I don't even know if that's a word, but it just wasn't. I'm like, am I a podcaster? Am I a host? That year was I hosted an award show. I say, none of this makes sense, Jesus. How am I hosting an award show? I mean, there were producers and movie stars, and I said, I'm hosting this. Like, none of it made any sense. None of it, because I couldn't put it in the box, right? I had gone to therapy, I want to say, when I first started liking my husband, because I was like, Lord, the things that I've been through, I'm gonna mess this man up. I need some help. I'm gonna need some help. So I went to therapy for about 5 years, and that she said, okay, you have OCD. And I say, now, can you explain what this is? Because I don't feel like I'm the neatest person in the universe. She says, no, it comes in varying forms. She says, you need to feel safe. And in order for you to feel safe, you have to put things in categories and boxes. And I said, okay. So here I was, a person who has OCD, who needs everything to be in categories and boxes, and there were no categories or boxes. The Lord was just like, I'm going to open this door. I need you to walk through it. And I'm like, I've never done that before. He says, did I ask you? Did I ask you if you did it before, or did I tell you to go? I said, all right. Calm down. I'm going. And every open door, like, after the door, there would be an affirmation. Someone would come and they would speak to my soul. They would speak to my soul. And I'm like, all right, this was the right door. That's confirmation. Boom. All right. Then he would say, go here, do that. I say, okay. there was so many firsts that year. Identity was probably the biggest struggle. Just each arena he was opening up, I'd never been there. I never did these things before. I never hosted a podcast. I never wrote a book. I never hosted an award show. What? I was like, what is happening? And he says, I, I I don't call the qualified. I qualify the call. So I called you. I got all the rest of that. I just need you to go. And so that 2022 was just a season of go. I had spoke at my first women's event at the LaGuardia Marriott to about over 250 women. And first time I ever spoke to a crowd of women that large, in person. I say, okay, this is different. And then afterwards, they said, oh, and Jori has recently released a book. She'll be in the lobby signing them. I ain't have enough books. I ain't bring enough books. Cause I say, okay, well, this is what we're doing. We just selling out of books. Just like, because my faith was so low. And he's like, but I'm calling you to a certain level, and I just need you to meet me there. But the identity, the scarcity mindset, the limited thinking, the self-doubt, I want to say that's probably one of the things that I continue to struggle with. And I wrote a book called More Than Enough: The Silent Struggle for Women's Identity. Yes, I helped write. Yes, I did. That don't mean I don't still struggle with it. But that's why I wrote it. I didn't write it because I've arrived. I wrote it because this is something I'm still struggling with. I'm still struggling with identity. Have I gotten better since 2022? Yes. But I think I'm probably gonna be struggling for my whole life, just from the things that I've experienced. Like, those are real. Those are real traumatic experiences. And to now be experiencing these other things, it feels so conflicting, like internally, because I'm used to the bad stuff. I'm used to the bad stuff happening. So then when this good stuff is happening, it's hard to trust it.
It's hard to trust it.
And so I'm like, all right, I don't trust that, but I trust you. So I'm a go.
That is good. That is very good. And identity is, man, that's it. It's interesting that you mentioned that. We're about to do at our church a women's brunch, and the theme is identity in Christ. I think it's easy for us. I know for me as a teacher, my identity was I'm a teacher. That's who I am. And I didn't necessarily love it, because like you said, it's not a very prestigious or well-respected role. And so my identity was I'm not respectable. I'm like the help. I'm just a teacher, right? I don't have a lot to offer. And so do you find it hard? I had this realization the other day myself. I'm wondering if you have felt this way. When God called me to do this podcast, I was very much like, what? Who am I? I can't, and to me, a podcast was such this big thing, right? To many others, it's nothing. It's nothing. But to me, it was. And I realized I couldn't step into big things. I did not know how big my God was, because I had never done anything what I considered big, right? I lived very safe, very under the radar, very below maybe what I could do. And I felt comfortable there. That was my identity. And it was almost like God was saying, no, your identity is in me. And it being in me, here's who I am. There is no limit.
Yep.
There is no limit. And I can call you. I mean, and it's like, I don't even know that exists. So I found myself limiting God because of my own mental limitations. I couldn't see it bigger. I couldn't live it bigger. And so it shrunk him. So for me, it was I didn't only learn about my identity, but I learned a lot about how big God really is. We hear that all the time. I knew it, but I had never lived in it with him. And I feel like hearing you talk and all the yeses you said, they say, what's the answer to how? Yes. Just say yes. And you were saying yes. So I imagine God just kept growing for you because he just kept opening those doors. Did you find, like, were you in this, like, what in the world? This is so big. Did that play with your mind?
So God set me up well because this was around the same time that I started getting into self-development
Mm-hmm.
and shifting mindsets and establishing a new identity. And so while all the seminars and online courses and all the things and the masterminds and the coaching and um, not that any of those things are bad, I was looking for affirmation, but
Mm.
oftentimes I was looking for it in the wrong places. And so I don't regret any of the decisions or the choices that I've made along the journey of learning more about who God is and who God says that I am.
Mm-hmm.
I think after each yes, I went back to my sanctuary. I went back to my room. I went back to the 4 a.m. prayers. I went back to going in my Bible. I went back to going over my affirmations. I went back to my, anchor scriptures. That's what grounded me so that
Mm.
I didn't continue to limit God. Because I kept going back to the source and saying, okay, you are an abundant God. Okay, what does that look like? And so just wrapping my brain around God has so much abundance. And the books that I was reading, they were regular, ordinary, average people who were doing these extraordinary things. Most of them attributed to God, right? But
Mhm.
there was nothing like going back to the Bible
Yeah.
and seeing God's hand specifically on his people and how he moved them and how he shifted things and how he created things that nothing was there, and then he created it. And just
Mhm.
reminding myself, like, that's the same God that I serve. I
Oh,
understand
that's
that
so.
my vision is skewed, my vision is limited. I
Mm-hmm.
wear glasses, my vision is limited, but I kept having to go back and put on my God lenses and seeing things through his eyes. And when I didn't, that's when I limited God. That's when I didn't say yes in boldness. I said yes with reservation. And
Mm-hmm.
then that's when the shakiness occurred, right? That's when things didn't pan out as beautifully as they possibly could have because I wasn't going in faith. I wasn't saying yes because I fully trusted.
Mm.
And even those times, like there's nothing that has happened, honestly, that I'm just like, oh, I'm so upset. I'm so like, no, from the time I tore my ACL to now, I'm like, I've had a pretty dope life and it's only been 2 years. I've had a pretty, like, it's been nice. It's been fun because I rediscovered what does it look like to have blind faith.
Mm.
I think after I had kids, the OCD ramped up, and I'm like, I need to know,
Yes.
I need to know, I need to know. Like, I need to be safe. How much money do we have? Is the mortgage fully paid up? Like, what's in savings? And like, I need
Yes.
to know, I need to know, I need to know. And that, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to walk again. I don't know if I'm going to be able to coach again. I don't know if I'm going to be able to teach again. Like, there were so many unknowns. I was like, eh.
Surrender.
That's why I was
Surrender.
off. I was just like, eh. Like, you know what? We rented a room in order to buy our house. We rented a room in someone else's house. Me, my husband, and I had 3 kids. 2 outside, 1 inside. I'm 9 months. We rented a room. While in that room, my baby came out, and then another one came after that. So there's 4 kids, 2 adults, and we went from 1 room to 2 rooms in a home. And through that entire time, God, I mean, you talking about provision. There was a family that lived in that home. I had a sister, right? The wife. I had a brother, the husband. My kids had siblings, older siblings. So when people are like, how do you continue to like keep going when all these things start happening? I'm like, because even when it seems like it's bad, like God always makes it good. And not just good, like really good. Like I've never had an older sister that I could go to in the faith too, where I'm able
Mm-hmm.
to share my heart and like ask questions. And her kids were older than mine. So I'm like, I have like a built-in discipling partner. sister, best friend, roommate. Like we'd stay up late watching popcorn. I'm like, we're grown. When is this ever gonna happen again? And so, just taking advantage of those opportunities where it feels like I'm in lack, even though it feels like I'm in like I'm never in want. And just remembering those times where I'm like, you know what, God, I didn't know how that was going to turn out. I didn't know there was a housing crisis in New York. I was like, I didn't know if we would ever get a home. I'm like, well, if this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing. And then God opened the door right before COVID. And I say right before COVID, I mean September 2019. We closed on our house. We were in the house less than 6 months before the entire world shut down. And I'm like, you are such a good God. Like the house that we had, it has 4 rooms. So no one got COVID, praise God. But I'm like, if we did, we have enough space. Right. We didn't have that before. 6 months earlier, everybody getting it. Everybody getting it. Yeah. But I'm just like, God provided, right? I got to house my father, a man who walked out of my life at 2 years old. I got to say, God, I want a relationship with this guy, because how I see him impacts how I see you. And so being able to heal that relationship and have him live with us and spend time with us, and for my kids to meet their grandfather in ways and seeing him interact with them that he didn't do with me. Like he got to experience his first kindergarten graduation with my daughter. Oh. Right. Like just building those special moments. And so it was bad. COVID was not good. It was bad. But even in the midst of that bad, I still had to see, God, like you were busy. Yeah. You were busy and you were healing. Healing spaces and places in my heart that I'm like, I didn't even know were still damaged and still wrecked. So I know there's a very long-winded response to that, but in terms of the identity and limiting God, I think when you continue to go back and reflect on the ways in which he's shown up so big in those times where you needed him so much, I think those are the things that keep fueling my faith so that I don't limit him. And when things seem like they're impossible, and I'm like, whoa, wait. Oh, yeah, I forgot. You be doing that. You be doing the impossible. Okay, my bad. I forgot. Carry on. Carry on. Where we going? What we doing?
That's so good. And you shared so much in that, though. So many good details. I've reflected myself and realized my journey started 6 years ago, and they have been the most uncomfortable 6 years of my life. So uncomfortable. No safety, so to speak, culturally speaking, safety or security. Sometimes going, okay, how are we going to make it? What's next? But by saying yes and stepping out of the boat and being in that complete surrender of faith, it's almost like, I hear people say God doesn't do miracles, or he's not working, or he's silent. I'm like, no, you just keep rescuing yourself. You keep taking the reins and rescuing yourself. But if you were to live this life on this journey, man, he is like, you don't see a path, you see thin air, but every time you put a foot forward, his hand comes up to hold it. Every time. And so even though the last 6 years have been the most uncomfortable of my life, they have been the most joy-filled, I would say, because I've got to not just read about him, know him, but like experience him. Do you feel that to be true for you?
Yes. Experiencing God is fun. I'm curious by nature. I've always been, even as a young child. And so I'm a learner. And I think that's probably what helped me gravitate toward education, other than God calling me and then having my mother be an educator for over 40 something years now, right? Like there was so much even in that. Like I don't want to be like her. I don't want to, whatever trauma I experienced in my youth, I associated with the humans that they're supposed to protect me. And I'm like, I don't want to be like that. I don't want that to happen to my, and so I think I had a lot of resentment toward education and just being a teacher. And when I released that and I submitted it to Jesus's feet, I found that the last 13 years of being in the classroom, prior to that, God had me work at an educational institution for 5 years. So 18 years in total in
That's a
education.
lot.
It is a lot. But each phase of me being involved in education, even now, like, even though people are like, oh, you teach phys ed, I'm like, yes, but I'm a lead teacher. Like, I help set the tone for the rest of the teachers in the entire school. Like,
Oh,
so I in even that was just like, okay, who's gonna listen to a phys ed teacher? Like seriously. But that's God, right? Like, God, again, he calls those who not are only qualified, but those who he qualifies, right? Like, those are the ones who get called. And so in the
yes.
process of me saying yes to that, because I was like, I'm leaving education. Why would I take a leadership position in education? That'd be silly, because I'm gonna leave soon, right, God? We're gonna peace out real soon, right, God? Right. Um, even in
No.
that opened so many other doors to me healing and learning more about myself and my identity. Where I got to work with this coach, a success coach who I wouldn't have been able to work with because I can't afford her. She's extremely expensive. But she worked with the school and the leadership team, which I was a part of. And so even that, like, God setting that up, and now, like, we've become really good friends, but her helping me in the process of writing this book understand my identity and my worthiness and what I cling and push and attach my worthiness to, though, so eye-opening. Like, even now, just understanding that the labels that I continue to associate with myself, like, they have a deeper meaning, I think, than
Mm.
sometimes I even want to acknowledge. And so I got a little upset when I went to visit a friend because she was introducing me according to 20-year-old titles.
Oh.
And nothing that she was saying was untrue. She was like, oh, this is my friend from New York. Yes, I'm your friend from New York. She's like, oh, she's a comedian. I'm like, nope, I don't do stand up anymore unless God calls me to. And she's like, oh, and she's a rapper. I'm like, I haven't rapped in quite some time. But she's recalling the fun parts that she remembers, right, of,
Mm-hmm.
of our youth. And so then when people meet me, they're like, oh, you're a rapper and a comedian from New York. And I'm just like, you've given them like, their expectations are now, like, very different than what's going to actually show up. And so I had to
Mm-hmm.
talk to her, and I said, hey, I said, it would have been cool if you and I spoke and we established, who do I think I am now? Not who do you remember me as, but who do I think I am? Because I'm going to show up the way that God has called me to now in this season, not according to the fond memories that you have of 20 years prior. And so she was like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to offend. I'm like, I'm not offended. I said, I don't know who God is going to put me in front of. And so I want to present who God has me right now. That's who I want to show up as. And she was like, okay, I fully understand that. I got you. And then when she did introduce me as my friend from New York, she's an educator. She also writes books. Someone heard write books. Well, have you written anything lately? I showed them the book. Her and her husband had prayed that morning about her struggle with her identity as a mom. Her daughter was leaving to college, and she didn't know how, she was all over the place. And so had she introduced me as the comedian, as the
Mm-hmm.
rapper, and not as the educator and author, we wouldn't have had open dialogue about the book. And so I gave her the book, and she cried. She hugged me. Like, she was like, this is exactly what my husband and I were praying for this morning. Like, me trying to figure out who I am now that my daughter's not there, because I've wrapped my identity around being a stay-at-home mom. She's like, and
Mm.
now I'm no longer a stay-at-home mom because my daughter's going to college. She's like, so thank you for this resource, because I get to kind of release that identity and then figure out who am I now in God. And I think that's an ongoing process, like releasing whoever we believe that we are and allowing God to redefine and reshape and remold us, right? Like, he is the potter, we are the clay.
Yes.
Well, you don't get made once, you get made over and over again if you allow yourself to go through refinement. And so
Mhm.
I think that's the part where I'm still learning and I'm still growing. How do I release the titles and the accomplishments and the accolades? How do I release it all? How do I still celebrate it, attribute it to God? Yes. How do I release them in order to be remade into whomever God desires for me to be in this season? And so that, again, long-winded, but that's where I've landed. I don't limit God, and I no longer limit me, because I understand that I am operating in God. And when I'm not, I can tell, because then we have the
Yeah.
imposter syndrome, and
Mhm.
the self-doubt and the showing up small, right? But
Mhm.
when I am fully just immersed in God's love, and I'm clear on who I am because I'm clear on who He is, I can show up in boldness, I can show up in love, I can show up in light, I can show up in joy. And I think that's always been probably God's heart for His people, especially His daughters, to be able to show up in love and in light and in joy.
Yes. That fruits of the spirit. If you could go back and talk to your younger self, what would you tell her? How would you coach her?
Well, I think my cousin asked me this the other day, and we were trying to figure out what age we would go back to. And I landed at about 22, because it was about 22 that I realized that I had some trouble trusting. I had some trauma that
Mm.
needed to be dealt with. Um, and I think that's when I started thinking about going to therapy, around 22. And so I think if I could go back to my 22-year-old self, and I know people were like, wait, but you were shot at like multiple times when you were younger and you didn't want to go back. And I'm like, no, I think those experiences, they helped me become the person that I needed to be. But I
Oh.
think at 22, the clarity that I had on the holes that I was trying to fill with everything else, I think they were the most evident at that time. So if I could coach my 22-year-old self, I would tell her to go get the help. Don't be embarrassed about asking for help. It's not weakness to ask for help. It's weakness to struggle and suffer in
Mm.
silence. Um, and to be open to possibilities unlike those that I had planned. When I was 22 and I got out of college, I was like, I want to do this and this and this. And I had my 3-year plan and my 5-year plan and I had all the plans. But I would have told myself to, like, let your plans go. Uh, Give them to God, and you're gonna have some fun.
Baby.
You're gonna have some fun.
That's
Uh, you're gonna have some fun. So yeah, because I think I stagnated my fun for probably almost maybe 15 years.
wow.
Because even though I knew I had trauma, even though I knew that I served a big God, I don't think I was bold enough or risky enough to experience Him the way that I have now when I turned 38. So yeah.
That's good. It's very good. Where can people find you, Jory? They're going to want your books. They're going to want to see you. They're going to want to connect with you.
Well,
Where can they go?
I will be in Texas, September 13th and 14th. Yes,
Woo!
I'll be in Texas. Um,
What?
yes. So we have a book signing at the Barnes and Nobles in at San Antonio, and so we'll
Ah,
be.
I'm in,
Where are
I'm
you?
in Dallas area. I'm closer to Dallas.
Okay, okay. Well, there's some Barnes and Nobles over there too. We can figure it out. It's gonna be great.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm gonna be in Texas in September. At the end of August, I'll be signing books in New York. We got the green light to go meet at Midtown November 22nd, the week before Thanksgiving. I'll be in Midtown signing books. So I'm going on a little book signing tour in the little pockets of the school year. God has not
Love
called me
it.
out of the classroom yet. So I said, okay, God, I don't know what this looks like, but my principal was down with it. And she's like, hey, I'm a fan. I bought your books. You got to go sign some books. Go ahead, I got you. So I'm super excited about that. But if you want to catch me online, I hang out mostly on Facebook and now a little bit on Instagram. Not so much, but you can find me at both at Jori O'Neale. So it's just at my
Okay.
name. Honestly, if you
And I'll
put
put
in
that in,
at my name anywhere, it'll pop up.
it'll
YouTube,
pop up.
it'll pop up everywhere. Threads, it's at my name. I'll be honest, I can't. Some of the stuff I see people's handles are, I'm like, how do you remember that? I don't. I
I
remember my
agree.
name. I remember my
Well,
name.
I'll put that in the show notes so people can find you. I'll put your name in there and every all your books, and they can find them on Amazon, anywhere. Look at that, more than enough. I love that cover and the color.
It's
It's
absolutely
good. It's
beautiful.
good.
Absolutely beautiful.
Both of those that you've shown are beautiful books. Beautiful. I cannot thank you enough for today, Jori. You're a delight, but of course you would be, because you're surrendered at Jesus's feet, and that's a beautiful place to be. And he is working through you, and I'm so thankful for your faith, that you're living out in action, the obedience. I'm grateful for that, because you're impacting God's kingdom.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. I thank you for titling your podcast as you did, because it definitely stuck out. I was like, fire starter.
You're a fire starter. You
What?
are a fire starter.
Listen, when I saw your podcast, I was like, we have to be friends. We just have to.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I don't know where, when. We have to be friends. Just because I was like, I thought I was the only one calling myself a fire starter for Jesus. Look at Hillary out here in these
The
streets.
Holy
Fire
Spirit
starters.
is
I love it.
moving. The Holy Spirit's moving, and he's igniting us. But you know what? He's igniting us through other fire starters. That's what I learned. I get to hear so many women's stories as a health coach. And what I was hearing, I was like, other people need to hear your story. They need to hear, just like you, the work that you do as an author. People need to hear this story. And because what I just heard ignited me, and it needs to ignite others. That is the purpose of this podcast, is to ignite women. So thank you for this. I'm just so thankful for you, friend. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right. It's stopping the